Good morning. Welcome to the 2026 Together Conference. I'm Annie Burke, and I'm the Executive Director of Together Bay Area, and I'm thrilled to welcome you all here today to this year's conference. The theme for this year is Pace, Scale, and Durability, and it's a multi-day, multi-format conference. We're starting here today online. Tomorrow we'll gather in person at Four Mason Center in San Francisco. And then there are 9 field trips happening on Thursday and Friday. So we're gathering in lots of different ways and lots of different formats. And we want to provide as many opportunities across the week for learning and connection for all kinds of people in all the ways that you think and connect and connect with one another. So one of our goals is to start now, to start connection right off the bat. So I invite you all to introduce yourself in the chat with your name, your affiliation, whether it's a tribe, organization, agency, or anything else that you want to share about the work that you do, and how you're planning to travel to Fort Mason tomorrow. There's no right answer, no wrong answer for how you're going to travel, but let's see. And I'm really curious if anybody's going to take the ferry. I'm really curious if anybody's going to take a helicopter. Just throwing those in there. So while you do that, look at all of you. It's so exciting to see you all. We've been seeing your emails and your registrations, and it's just really fun when the actual humans start coming together. So while you do that, I want to share a little bit about Together Bay Area. We're a regional coalition of around 80 organizations, and those organizations are nonprofits, public agencies, tribes, tribal native-led organizations, and businesses. And our members are an amazing group of leaders and doers and implementers and innovators. And I see a bunch of people here today that work for our members. Thank you so much for being here. If you can give me a wave on the screen or a thumbs up in the chat or a reaction, that'd be awesome. So really, thank you so much to all of our members for being here today. And you're all involved in a variety of ways. Our members are in this year's conference. I'm hosting this week's field trips, which I mentioned. We have 14 folks who work for our member organizations who are serving as ambassadors, and they're enthusiastically welcoming first-timers this year, which has been really fun to see and to witness. And then we have several members that are speaking at breakouts tomorrow: Katie, Naoma, Danny, Mel, and Olivia on stage, and so much more. Our members are really contributing in lots of different ways. I want to thank our board of directors. They all work for Together members, and their role is to ensure that this organization, Together Bay Area, thrives and achieves its vision. And I invite you to give them a high five if you see any of them tomorrow. They will have a special board member name tag thing. So if you see any of these amazing folks, give them a high five. I also want to introduce and celebrate the amazing team of people who are putting together this conference. This is a really an amazing group of people. And thank you for muting so that we can all hear. Thank you so much. Please join me in some Zoom appreciation for Michaela Nee, Laura Rosenthal, Molly Curley O'Brien, Jessica Little. This is a dream team of people, and just really thrilled to work with them and to have them all working together to create some space for all of you to come together. Also working with Michelle Rodriguez and Tina Valentine from Winslow and Associates. They're an event planning team. And this is the 3rd year that we are working with them, and they are just event planning superstars. So really grateful to them. Also, I want to give a shout out to some volunteers that are going to be there tomorrow. Under the leadership of Professor Aiko Yoshino at San Francisco State, these amazing folks are going to be volunteering tomorrow. They're students in the outdoor recreation program at San Francisco State, and we're so excited for them to be a part of this conference. And I also want to I could thank for about an hour and a half, but I won't, but I do want to say another thank you to the 50 2026 conference sponsors. This event doesn't happen without sponsorship, and it's just so amazing to have all of you all of these organizations supporting the work that we're doing and supporting regional coordination. So a huge, huge thanks to all of this year's sponsors. Then there's so many of them that I have to pause to see all of their beautiful logos. Thank you so much. All of that support means that we can welcome in a lot of people, and I'm really grateful. I also want to acknowledge the lands under our feet, our Indigenous lands, wherever your feet are today. And I'm guessing that there's a lot of different landscapes that our feet are on, and all of that land is Indigenous land. The waters we drink are Indigenous waters. Together Bay Area is working in multiple ways to go beyond acknowledging the land, and I'm excited to share in what ways on main stage tomorrow. You'll hear more about what we're doing at Together Bay Area. I also invite you to get out of your comfort zone a little bit tomorrow to meet Native or non-Native people that you don't know. To learn from Native tribes and organizations who will be in the exhibitor village, to watch a film about 30 by 30 and land return, and much more. Together, we can go way beyond land acknowledgements and move towards being in right relations with each other in this place we call home. I also want to acknowledge, I just want to celebrate the multidimensionality of the work that we're doing. This is not binary, good, bad, not done. The work that we're doing and who we are as people, we are multidimensional. We are not just one thing. We are not just our job title. We are not just our name. And I'm assuming that all of you here today are a lot more than what I can see on those little boxes. We contain multitudes, most of which is not visible from the outside. I say all of this because one of Together Bay Area's guiding principles is that the problems we're working on are multidimensional. I need some more caffeine. And that the climate and biodiversity crises are intertwined with the structural racism and cultural divisions in our country. Like those are all one thing. And so as we gather here today and the rest of the week, I invite you to think about multitudes, not the binary of good, bad, black, white, but look beyond the book cover to learn what's inside. And I invite you to open your minds to the multiple truths and multiple realities, multiple pathways that we have towards our shared goals. Okay, and that starts now. I want to share our plan for today's online kickoff. Here's our agenda. First, we're going to hear from 3 guest speakers to get grounded in our theme of pace, scale, and durability. After their presentations, you'll get to talk amongst yourselves and discuss what you heard and learned. That's an opportunity for you to meet one another and perhaps meet somebody that you don't know and want to see tomorrow. We'll come back together as a large group, and then you'll learn about the plans for tomorrow. We'll talk about card pool coordination, what time to be there, and how that's going to work. And then we'll create some space for first timers to connect. We'll set up 3 different breakout rooms, one for first timers, one for not first timers. I'm not calling them old timers, but if this is not your first time to the Together conference, that breakout room is a great place for you. And then we'll also have another breakout for a Q&A session with our 3 speakers.
Tanvi is going to speak. That's fine.
We're going to have opportunities quickly while they're speaking to ask questions. But if you have questions for our speakers, I invite you to hold on to them and bring them to that breakout session where we'll be able to dive deeper. And we'll wrap up by 10:30. Does that sound good? Yes, we're recording, and I encourage you to like, subscribe, and share on YouTube. Okay, let's get started. As I said, this year's conference theme is pace, scale, and durability. And we chose this theme because we hear our members and our partners talking about these things all the time. At any point, Together Bay Area is convening between 200 and 700 people. And so we're hearing a lot of things that are happening around the region. And we hear things like, why can't we move faster? Why won't senior leadership slow down to move at the pace of trust? How can we scale up, putting good fire on the ground? Is it more impactful for our organization to go wide or to go deep? And what policies or priorities will persist with the next governor or the next legislature? What will sustain through time? And I'm thrilled to get some perspectives on these three things from three wise people. Our hope is that today's presentation tees us up to go even deeper when we all gather tomorrow, and even deeper when you're out on those field trips. Those field trips are a great opportunity to get even more specific, more tangible. So consider this a warm-up. And instead of reading their bios, which you can read online, I'm going to tell you why we invited these three folks to join us here today. So first, I'm honored to introduce Tanvi Dutta Gupta. This year, Bay Nature is celebrating its 25th anniversary. Congratulations to Bay Nature. Please join me in celebrating this amazing resource to the Bay Area. And I don't know if my screen will show it, but I've got the anniversary issue right here with me. And in that issue, Tanvi wrote a beautiful piece that highlights stories of progress over the lifespan of this essential Bay Area publication and resource and partner. Tanvi's insights and perspectives are so valuable, not because she's been in the trenches writing grant proposals and deep in the spreadsheets of the work, but because she hasn't been. Her perspective as an emerging journalist helps us see what's obvious. Tanvi can help us both see the forest and the trees. Next, I'm really excited to welcome Amanda Kochanek. She works for GreenInfo Network, and GreenInfo is an essential partner to us at Together Bay Area for the Conservation Lands Network, and is intimately involved with California's 30 by 30 initiative and so many other projects. It turns out that GreenInfo Network is also celebrating a significant anniversary, and that's their 30th. So please join me in celebrating that anniversary too. Amanda has been deep in GIS and mapping for over 25 years at GreenInfo, and I can't think of anyone else who knows more about what's happening kind of parcel by parcel across the state. And so she's here to really help us understand the quantitative progress we've made, quantitative being one way, acres being one way of measuring progress, but not the only. And she really knows so much, and I'm really thrilled that she's here. And finally, but not least, is Brian O'Donnell. If you've wondered where 30 by 30 comes from, one answer is Brian O'Donnell. And what I appreciate about Brian is his ability to see the work of conservation at different scales. He lives here in the United States, but he's working across this country and across the globe, from the hyper-local to the global. And he's paying attention to the progress and who's doing what and how, that I think is really valuable for us to learn from. So when we talk about 30 by 30, it's not just the number of acres, but it's the larger movement around it. So even if you aren't directly involved in 30 by 30 in your specific work, Brian has a perspective that will relate to everybody. So as I said earlier, we'll have a time at the end for maybe one question, and then we'll have a breakout session later on in today's kickoff for questions. So if you have questions, please put them in the chat or save them and bring them to the breakout session later. So let's begin. Let's begin with stories. Tanvi, can you tell us about what stories of progress that you're seeing, that you've written about, that you'd like to share with us today?
Yeah, thank you so much, Annie. Really appreciate it, and really appreciate the kind introduction. Yeah, feel so privileged to be here today. I grew up very far away from the Bay Area, but it's these landscapes and the people that steward them that have shaped my adult life, and it's been such an honor to report on these places for Bay Nature. So yeah, like Annie said, I'm going to share two stories quickly from our 25th anniversary issue, which looks like this. You can get your copy on the Bay Nature online store. But in this issue, we basically were working to ask the question, what does 25 years of change mean for a place? And to me, this question was extra special because I started reporting the piece as I turned 25. So it also made me think a lot about how the world has shifted over the course of my own lifetime and what I might see, over the next 25 years. So the first story I'm going to share is of a place you've probably all been, and if you haven't, you can definitely visit it tomorrow. And the second story is from a place most of you have probably never been to, but if you sign up for a Bay Nature event, you could visit next month. So yeah, you probably all recognize this as Crissy Field. And among the picnickers and the kite surfers and, the herons flying over and the whale watchers by the beach, you can't really imagine an abandoned military airstrip. But that's what it was for decades. It was an airstrip that launched planes during World War II. Several of Amelia Earhart's planes also flew out of Crissy Field. And then it was abandoned and became this sort of tire-filled, rubble-lined shoreline that was described as a derelict concrete wasteland. In 1994, the Department of Defense handed it over to the National Park Service, and ecologists, philanthropists, historians, bureaucrats, and more were tasked with imagining something completely different. And yeah, this became possible going from here to here because of millions of foundation dollars and major institutions, governments, and nonprofits working together, including some of the largest donations the National Parks Service had ever seen at that point in time, and one of the biggest urban restoration projects the US had ever seen. And it happened quickly and it happened big, relatively speaking, with that kind of power behind it. But it's endured also because along with those multi-million-dollar donations from foundations, there were also thousands of individual donations and more than 3,000 volunteers and interns who came out to Crissy Field around the turn of the century to pull weeds and plant dune plants and invested in this really ambitious, transformative vision. And the other thing that really strikes me and will strike anyone visiting Crissy Field is that initial restoration when the park opened in 2001 was never the end of the story. And this park is still being reimagined every year. More streams are being restored all the way up from the marsh at Crissy Field to its freshwater source at El Poland Springs. More trails are opening if you visited the tunnel tops and the other recreational areas that have emerged. The federal government threatens funding, and people come together to defend this place that they've fallen in love with. What this story reminds me is that durability isn't just a destination, but it's actually just an ongoing dialogue. So, yeah, that's Crissy Field, and I hope you get a chance to go. If you go tomorrow, now's a great time to see gray whales. But yeah, next I'd want to move south. Okay, great. Yeah, this is a drone shot of a corner of Kuroste Valley Cultural Reserve, and I'm curious how many people here have heard of it. If you want to just raise a hand or put it in the chat or something. Okay, yeah. Well, that's really encouraging. Yeah, Kuroste is not a place many people have visited because it is a cultural reserve. And around 2000, the only people that really came here were archaeologists and state park staff. And archaeologists came here to kind of begin to excavate and understand its history. And they soon realized, of course, that they were far, 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 far from the first people here. And as they came across the histories of the Kuroste people, they began to build a relationship with the Alamutsan tribal band. When tribal members, including Valentin Lopez, the former chairman of the Alamutsan tribal band, visited, they saw this landscape choked with Douglas firs. And, to someone not familiar with Bay Area landscapes, it might seem like, okay, this looks pretty natural. This isn't like Crissy Field. This isn't a bunch of trash by a shoreline. Um, but what they recognize, this is a far cry from the coastal prairie that their ancestors had stewarded. And as a result of that relationship and this partnership in 2008, state parks partnered with the Amamutsan in one of the first agreements between California state parks and a federally unrecognized tribe. So this is what Kuroste looks like today. If you go to the next slide. Yeah, so it is different. The disappearance of those trees is not magical and not a fire. It's thanks to years of work and partnership between the Amamutsa Native Stewardship Corps, where young tribal members came out to steward the landscape, which meant chainsawing and weed pulling and pile burning. And it also meant using traditional fire starting methods to start the first pile burn of Douglas firs at Kuroste. In the big stand, sort of to the right of this picture, they cut down all the trees but one, which they left to shade them on their lunch breaks. And this is a pretty small corner in a pretty large mountain range with a lot of area that needs to be restored by good fire and pile burning and forest thinning. And this change isn't an enormous scale acreage-wise like Chrissy Field. And it took decades of relationship building and community growth to get to this point. But what this story reminds me is that the scale of change doesn't need to be measured in acreage, it can also be measured in the people it transforms. Because I think my biggest takeaway talking to people is that these 25 years at this landscape have changed so many people, from the state park scientists who learned from tribal knowledge and the tribal members who finally got a chance to work with land they've been traditionally restricted from accessing. And changing hearts and minds is a really slow, slow process, but ultimately that's always the change that lasts. This conservation landscape today is so dramatically different from the one in 2000 and the one I was born into. And that's a result of these slow shifts from climate change being a niche scientific issue to being part of our everyday vocabulary, to progressing from ideas of let's keep developers away from this place to let's restore it, which David Loeb, our founder, told me about, to understanding also conservation work as an ecosystem in and of itself that needs many hands to get things done, not just one person who's really passionate, about a forest. Yeah, and that's what I'm thinking about is the ecosystem it takes to return an ecosystem and think of an ecosystem for the future. But yeah, thank you all for your time, and I'm so excited to meet all of you tomorrow.
Thank you so much, Tanvi. That was beautiful and really inspiring. And I learned a ton and really want to go see those places. So thank you so much for bringing your perspective and sharing those stories with us. Next, we want to move to Amanda, who is going to talk to us about some acres, not as the only way of measuring, but as an important way, and one of the ways that is mappable. And so I welcome Amanda from GreenInfo Network to join us some of the quantitative measures of progress towards healthier lands over the past 25 years. Amanda.
Great. Thank you, Annie. I wanted to start by saying how excited I am. I am normally behind the computer staring at pixels and moving vertices, so it's exciting to be out in the world. And I also wanted to start by thanking all of you. My work only exists because of the work you all do. So you're out in the fields every day working hard to identify, protect, and steward these critical lands on the landscape. And so I'm working to try to reflect that land. So I'm going to start here with a time series, which I'll get started, and I'll let it run through a few times. Also, it'll be available if you'd like to watch it later. Let's see if I can start it here. And so I'll start by saying this is interesting to me because it does show the measure of acreages, but it also shows the distribution. And it comes back to what we were just talking about. There's a story behind each and every property here that's protected. There are the wins, there are the losses, there are the struggles, and it's not over. It's always an ongoing cycle. So we're going through 2025 here as the last year, and then it'll continue to loop. So I'm going to let it go through one more time and let people just sort of see the progress here. So one thing you might start to notice is it's pretty steady. What happens is around the 60s or 70s, we start to ramp up in the amount of acres protected each decade. And we really sort of hone in on this measure of 200,000 acres per decade is what's being protected across the landscape, starting around 1970, we'll say. And the amazing part is that a part of the theme for PACE is that of this conference is that if we continue this pace, we'll be able to achieve 50 by 50. So to step back just for a moment for all of us, the broad, ambitious goal of protecting half of the Bay Area by the year 2050 is achievable if we're able to keep doing what we're doing now, what you all are doing now. So I think that's pretty exciting. It's a good way to start the conference, but also remembering each win is hard. Each win takes a lot of work, and that's all of you on the ground day in and day out, finding those lands to protect, getting through the protection cycle, and then maintaining those as we go. So that's all really exciting to me, and I was so excited to be able to report to Annie that we're right on track for our first theme. So from there, I wanted to step to another presentation I have for you, which was if we protect 200,000 acres every decade, that works out to 20,000 acres every year. And I started to think, well, what is 20,000 acres? Yes, I'm a spatial person. I work on maps, but I still couldn't come up with what that actually meant without references. So what we have here is a map, the same map that the last time series ended on in that cycle for 2025. And I've highlighted two parks that I'm hoping most folks on this call will be familiar with one or the other. They are both 20,000. So we don't need both each year, but one or the other sort of scale to get there. So what it amounts to is both our pace and our scale are right on track for our large goal of getting to 50 by 50. And I'll note that this land protection is coming from BPAD. So this is an open data set. You're free to use this as you see fit in your work, and see the interconnectivity between what you're doing and what other agencies are doing in your region. So I'm going to step away from the map and go to a second graphic I have, which here, what I'm hoping to highlight to you is this progress over time. So the map is nice, you can see the green come up, but it was hard for me to get a scale of each decade, how things are changing. So here we have our goal, reach 50% of the region by 2050. The Bay Area is roughly 5 million acres. So that means we want to protect 2.5 million acres by the year 2050, as we have on the top here. So across this lower right-hand side, each different shade of green is representing a different decade. So before 1950, we don't have a lot of information on year of acquisition of those properties, but we hone into about 15% is protected by 1950. You can see the 50, 60 decades are a little smaller than the others, but then you start to see this very consistent pattern where I was saying we're going with about 200,000 acres of protection, new protected lands coming on every decade. This fluctuates a bit. It can be as low as 150, it can be up towards 250 or 300, but it's a really nice stable number that you can see over time that we've achieved. Now this goes through 2025. Last year happens to be a nice halfway point between these decades. So you can see we're still on target with that. And then what I've done is sketched out what the future could look like. So can we get to 50 by 50? As I said, yes, if we continue this. So by 2030, you can see we're starting to hone in on the 75%. 2040 brings us right up to about halfway through what's remaining. And then right around 2050, give or take a year, obviously things fluctuate, we do achieve that goal. So to me, that was really exciting to see combined with the map, looking at this measure, we've proven over and over that you all have been able and continue to do this work. So our pace and our scale are right on track. Then I thought, okay, I've looked at this. What would it look like if we could represent this on the map? This teal top bar of future we all hope to protect. You guys are out there defining what it is. There are infinite ways this could be represented. So one is the Bay Area has a plan, right? You all have come together, continue to come together for the Conservation Lands Network, also known as the CLN. Within that, there are areas that you all have determined are critical to protect. And what nicely aligns is if you take those critical lands, add them to the map that was shown in the beginning. This is one, as I said, of infinite possibilities of how the landscape could look if we were to achieve the 50% by 2050 using the goals that you have all defined on which lands would be protected. Now, for me, this comes back to durability. And the reason I think of durability, which might not strike you initially, is that yes, the land is permanently protected. Yes, we're going for strong stewardship, but I also see a diversity of lands. It's across the entire landscape. We're aiming for access for multiple communities of different types. We're looking for different types of recreations that different communities want and need. And to me, all of that comes together to create the vision of 50 by 50 that is also durable. So to me, we're right on track for all three of our goals, Annie, in this conference.
Thank you so much, Amanda. That's so cool to see it laid out in a map, and to see the timeline. And I want to confirm with you that we will be able to share that with folks later.
Yes, all the materials are certainly available for sharing. I'm happy to provide this.
Awesome. I, for one, can't wait to just press play and watch the loop go over and over again. So thank you so much, Amanda, and thank you for all of your work. We need people like you. We need you doing the work of counting and tracking so that we can see the progress that we're making as a community. Awesome.
Thank you.
Next, I'm really excited to welcome Brian O'Donnell to talk about what role the Bay Area has in the global community. And now, Brian, you've heard some stories of progress over the past 25 years. You've seen the progress that we're making in terms of conserving land. Talk to us about what you're seeing from your global perch.
Sure. Well, first of all, it's a real pleasure to be here and to just hear from Tanvi and Amanda. And I'm actually going to follow their lead and in order to share what's going on the kind of a global perch, maybe take a trip backwards as they did, start with a little reflection of where we've come from. 34 years ago, there was a big global summit called the Rio Earth Summit, and three major treaties for the state of the planet were developed there. One on climate change, and that climate treaty has gotten a ton of news over the past decades, and much of the attention in the global community and among leaders, both at the grassroots level all the way up to heads of state. But two lesser known treaties were also developed there, one on desertification and one called the Convention on Biological Diversity, which was a treaty around how we're going to safeguard nature and biological diversity on the planet. Unfortunately, that treaty was kind of a forgotten treaty in many ways. There was a strategic plan that was developed called the Inaichi in Japan, and it set together some targets, all of which were missed to safeguard the planet. And so it was in this backdrop that we realized that biodiversity was really crashing and we needed to do something about it. Now go back 7 years to May of 2019, when some of the world's leading experts on biodiversity from an entity with a very long name, the Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, known as IPBES, because we all create acronyms for all of these challenging UN agencies. They released the most comprehensive review on the state of the world's biodiversity. So this was 2019, 7 years ago. And this was compiled by 145 expert authors from more than 50 countries. They worked for several years with inputs from 310 contributing authors, also incorporated Western science and traditional ecological knowledge. And their findings were really a gut punch for all of us who care about nature. They said that nature is declining globally at rates unprecedented in human history, and that the rate of species extinctions is accelerating with grave impacts for people around the world. They even let us know that we are eroding the very foundations of our economies, our livelihoods, food security, health, and the quality of life worldwide. With 1 million plant and animal species now threatened with extinction, many more within decades, this is perhaps the greatest extinction event we've seen in our lifetimes. And so we need to do something about it. And we also know it's not just the extinction of species, but we're also facing a dramatic decline in species abundance. You've probably seen that in your lifetimes, maybe fewer butterflies or birds or salmon offshore. And so it was under this backdrop that a number of entities, indigenous peoples, scientists, communities came together to say, let's do something about this. And this is where this idea of a 30 by 30 campaign was germinated. How do we protect at least 30% of the world's oceans and lands and do it quickly by 2030? Set a deadline on this so that we create a solution commensurate with the challenges we're facing. Now, and we heard this earlier from Tanvi and others, we know that nature can't really be reduced just to a percentage, right? Nature is the foundation of our economies, our livelihoods, our food, our heritage, our culture, the air we breathe, the water we drink, and our health is directly tied to the health of natural systems. But when we think about getting global engagement, we had to get something that was simple enough to capture the attention of politicians who are often not thinking about nature in terms of a political solution. It was simple enough that it could be translated across the global scale, but also time bound. And that's where 30 by 30 came forward. It also directly addressed the main causes of biodiversity loss. We know that biodiversity decline primarily is done through habitat loss on land and land use change and overexploitation in the marine space in the oceans. So 30 by 30 address both the overexploitation and the habitat loss directly. In order to get this goal moving, nations began signing up to the global 30 by 30 goal, starting with Costa Rica and then France. Ultimately, more than 120 countries joined a thing called the High Ambition Coalition for Nature and People. This was the coalition of governments that advocated for this effort. The state of California was one of the first subnationals to join this coalition and has been a leader on the subnational level and on the global level, really, for getting 30 by 30 established. And in 2001, the Convention on Biological Diversity had a discussion about its new framework for safeguarding biodiversity, and it was unanimously agreed to that 30 by 30 would be a global goal. So we are all now working under a framework in which all the nations of the world have signed up to this global goal, with, of course, the exception of our country that has pulled out of that, which is an unfortunate place we find ourselves, but California remains committed to this, as do many other states in the country. So now we're in the hard part. How do we deliver this? And this is where you in the Bay Area, you may think of your work as local conservation work, but you are actually at the very front lines of this global campaign. In fact, you are really the most important ones doing this for several reasons. First of all, as you know better than I do, because you live there, the San Francisco Bay Area is a global biodiversity hotspot, one of the nation's top 6 biodiversity hotspots, with the largest estuary on the Pacific coast, more than 7,000 native plant species, habitat for rare endangered species. You're a part of the crucial migratory stopover and Pacific Flyway. Obviously, you have incredibly important cultural lands, as well as important lands for nature and important areas for climate as well. And equally important is the approach that you're taking. You're showcasing that conservation can be done in a manner that's inclusive, that recognizes the leadership and traditional ecological knowledge of indigenous peoples, and centers that as the central way to achieve 30 by 30. You're also showcasing that this can be done in a place that has numerous other challenges and numerous other activities happening on the land. You know better than I do that the Bay Area is a premier economic region with worldwide innovation, technology. You've got a GDP that is the size of Switzerland, so huge economic base. Also a large agricultural base with a $6.1 billion agriculture economy. So when we hear other countries saying, I can't do conservation because I've got to grow my economy, you're showcasing that you can have a premier economy, you can do this in an inclusive way, and you can also have an agriculture economy all working in concert, but you know that takes the long and hard work of working and building trust and doing it from the bottom up. So globally, that message needs to be heard. So where do we stand on this global goal? Well, we're not there yet, obviously. We've got a long way to go, but countries are making real progress. Some of the countries that are showcasing movement on 30 by 30 include Madagascar, country with one of the struggling with one of the poorest economies in the world, is actually showcasing global leadership on 30 by 30, showcasing that they can move and make progress there. We're seeing progress in Samoa, and in fact, the small island states in the Pacific are leading the world in terms of the ambition for 30 by 30 and beyond. We've seen good movement in Panama. To our north, Canada has designated a significant number of new First Nations protected areas that are showcasing how First Nations are leading the world in biodiversity conservation. And to the south of us, Mexico has a big 30 by 30 initiative. But globally, we're not on pace yet to get to 30 by 30. And we have a big gathering coming up. The Convention on Biological Diversity has a conference in Yerevan, Armenia, coming up at the end of October, where they'll do a global stock take to see where we stand. And part of that stock take will be negative. They will say we're behind in terms of the pace and the scale. And some nations will want to say, maybe we should give up on this. Maybe we should extend the timeline. Maybe we should lower the ambition. Maybe we should count things towards conservation that also have big oil and gas drilling or mining in them, and really kind of fudge the way we count 30 by 30. So this is why what you're doing in the Bay Area is saying, you know what, when people put their mind to it and they work from the bottom up and they do an inclusive approach, you can do this. And so your example is one that we will showcase in the global arena at COP17 in Yerevan. And I just want to commend you for the efforts, both what you've already done, what you're doing now, and of course, the path you're on into the future. It's really admirable, and it is sending a message to the world that this is possible and you're doing it in the right way. So I want to thank you for all of your work, and I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Brian. It's really both challenging and heartwarming to hear what's happening around the world, but also that there's so many people, so many countries and subnationals who are taking the goal of 30 by 30 and really leaning into it in order to achieve it, but also to do all the other multi benefits of that go with it. So thank you so much for sharing that perspective.
My name is Michaela. I'm the community events manager at Together Bay Area, and we are also doing a pretty big thing tomorrow that I would love to share some details with you all about in terms of getting there to the biggest part of our conference, all 500 of us in a room sort of thing. So you all have what you need to be ready and roll up together with us. So this is the full schedule that we've got going on for the conference. As you all know, we are here today. It's Tuesday, May 12th. We're doing the online kickoff right now. And so this is officially the first day of our conference. Tomorrow is the day where we will gather IRL or in real life in San Francisco at the Fort Mason Center to do things like this picture here on the screen is from last year. You know, all of us in a room, speakers, breakout sessions, breakfast, lunch, reception, all the things all day long in a traditional conference sense. So that's coming. And then Thursday and Friday, if you signed up for a field trip, your field trips are taking place on one of those days. So we come together in different formats and mediums all week long. And we're just so excited to be able to stretch our brains and bodies and conversations and see you all in so many different formats. So thank you for rolling with us. This is what the building looks like if you have not been there before that we're going to be at tomorrow. It's called the Gateway Pavilion at Fort Mason Center. It's right on the, you can like barely see where water begins on either side of the building, but it's stunning. We're due for some good weather tomorrow and doors open at 8 a.m. So come on in and grab coffee, say hi to somebody before we get things really rolling with speakers at 9. And there'll be some volunteers kind of waving you down and welcoming you in right as you join in. Registration and check-in is all right in here too. Things to bring, most importantly, yourself, your curious self. You can bring a reusable water bottle or mug if you'd like to as well. You can be like Victor here from a couple years ago, like bring your fun mug, bring your zest and personality because you can and it's joyful. If you are in the practice of using business cards, you can bring those as well, or whatever other methods you like to use for sharing contact information with all the new people that you'll be meeting. You do not need to bring a printed or other like form of your tickets. You can have your email up if you have questions or need things like that, but our volunteers will check you in by name when you arrive. So it's we'll go that way. And maybe walking, like comfortable walking shoes. We're not hiking or anything like that, but it's a long day walking around, hustling from room to room, talking to people all over the place. So just be comfortable and be yourself. If you are a first-time attendee at the conference, or you are not a first-time attendee and you want to meet first-time attendees or help welcome them, we have kind of a designated area for a first-timers breakfast meetup at 8 a.m. in the conference building. When you arrive, you'll get a printed program that has a venue map and you'll see like a little star where this is happening, but it's basically just right near the breakfast area. And we're welcoming ambassadors will be there to welcome you and say hello and help introduce you to the conference. And it's an awesome opportunity to meet other people who are there for the first time or ask questions and kind of get plugged in before the full day gets rolling. So just know that that is happening and that is there for you. In terms of our schedule for the day, all of the things are in much more depth on our website. So check that out for like all the different breakouts and speaker bios and all the good stuff. But at a glance, you can look forward to our opening session on the main stage starting at 9. We'll have a 11 a.m. storytelling session on the main stage as well, and then a closing panel towards the end of the afternoon with breakouts happening in between as well. And there's also lunch. We're going to take breaks. And there's going to be some structured networking opportunities and lots of things within all this. One special thing we're doing with breakouts this year that is different from last year is that we're going to have 6 breakouts that are hosted twice. There's one exception to that, which is a Right Relations meetup that'll just happen once if you're a previous participant of that program. But with that exception, all the different breakouts are going to be hosted identically twice. And so you don't have to choose, you can choose 2 basically, instead of just having to only go to one and make that tough choice of content. So lots of opportunities to dive in. And to end the day, we kind of end programming on the stage kind of way at 4:30, but that's because we have a reception that starts upstairs with drinks and bites and photo booth and all the fun stuff. So hang out for that, and then we'll call it a day at 6:30. So that's what we've got going on, nicely packaged with a lot more density on our website again, if you want to look more into speakers and all the sessions and details there. We have over 30 exhibitors joining us at the exhibitor village upstairs in the building tomorrow, which is awesome. And this is an amazing opportunity. I mean, many of you in this room might be exhibiting, or your organizations might be exhibiting. So if you're one of those people, get ready for all the humans that are coming to say hi to you. And if you're not, then go say hi to these people. They're there, they're going to be tabling at different parts of the day and ready to share about their work and find their future colleagues and partners and clients. And it's a great way to meet them. You'll also find that in your printed programs as you arrive, there is a exhibitor village scavenger hunt, and there are prizes available. And a part of this, if you do some fun things like make a secret handshake with an exhibitor and other sort of quests. So we welcome you to partake in the fun, come meet each other, yeah, and just be there with us in all those ways. And of course, the field trips on Thursday and Friday. If you're going on a field trip by now, you've already signed up for one. We sent out information about those trips last week. So you should have everything you need. If you don't, please email us and we'll make sure to get you the information for your trip that you signed up for. This is another, if you were here with us at our pre-party at 8:50 this morning, you saw a dose of these photos already where Wilma was gallivanting around, our mascot weasel that we now brought into the world. And yeah, there's lots of trips happening. They're all over the Bay Area. They're going to be beautiful. I have so much FOMO already that I can't go on all of them with you, but hope you all have a blast. This is kind of the boots on the ground, like get technical, be there physically, and kind of portion of the conference. And so very much an extension of everything else we're building up to. And we hope you have a blast out there. I think that's it for me. I'm going to stay, we'll have some more things coming right now that Annie's going to tee up for us, but generally speaking, we are just so excited to see you all tomorrow. Lots of amazing people and colleagues just packed into a room, as you can see here, with a lot of joy and fun. And yeah, we're really excited to share the day with you all. So Annie, I'll take it back over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Michaela. There's so much good. There's so many opportunities to be together, to connect, to learn from one another. There's so much wisdom in this room here on Zoom and in that room that we'll be in tomorrow. There's so much lived experience, so much expertise, technical and otherwise, and I really invite you to make the most of it. You are a part of a community that has a lot to give, and you yourself have a lot to give also. So really looking forward to tomorrow. This concludes the formal portion of the online kickoff, in that we hope you got inspired, and we hope that you met someone new, and we hope that you got some more information about what's going on. You're free to go, or you can stick around and stay for some bonus together time. And that is breakout rooms for people with different, depending on where you want to go. There's the first timers breakout room. There's the not the first timers breakout room, where you can see somebody new, or see somebody that you maybe have met before, talk about, kind of what your pro tips are for attending together conferences. And if you have questions for Amanda, Tanvi, or Brian, we'll have a breakout room for you to ask them questions. So with that, Michaela's going to set us up with 3 breakout rooms that we are going to choose. And you can move yourself to where you want to go. If you would like to change your mind somewhere in the middle of it, that's totally fine too. You can come back to this main room and then move to another room.